Hello, I'm Roswell Camp, son of John Sandford. This is John Sandford.
Hello.
Today I'm going to be having him answer questions that were sent in by the readers via Facebook. So, let's just get started. Marcus Brown says, Letty's a great character. Can we expect any future books based on her?
I can't answer that question because I don't know what the answer is. A number of people have suggested it. And there are some problems with it that I just haven't been able to resolve yet in my own mind. So I just don't know.
I mean, she's strong enough to carry a book of her own, probably, but...
Oh, I think she is strong enough to carry a book of her own. The question is whether I really want to go in that direction or not. She's a good character and she's a strong character, but I just don't know if I want to do that.
Sue Steckel-Solon says, or asks, which authors do you read as soon as they come out?
I read a lot of my competitors, or a lot of my associates or my colleagues or whatever you want to call them. Like there's a new book out now just about every week, and I read about half of them. I read Alan First anytime Alan First comes out. I read. I just read all of them. I really don't know what to say, because I started out as a fan, and it's my feeling that most writers who are good at this are at some level fans. I always have been. I majored in history and literature in college, American history and literature, and while I was reading all that stuff, Moby Dick and all the great American writers, I was also reading thriller novels right from the start. So, like if you name a thriller writer, or even somebody who is almost a thriller writer, like Carl Hiaasen, who is more of a literary kind of writer, but still writes in something of the thriller vein, I'll read him, and so that's what I do.
Daniel Kelly asks, and this is relating mostly to the Virgil novels, I think, are you a muskie fisherman? And if so, do you have a favorite lake?
I am a muskie fisherman, and the hardest fishing I've done has been on Eagle Lake up in northwest Ontario, and that's and then I also fish over in Vilas County, and lately my longtime fishing partner Bill Gardner, who wrote one of the Virgil books with me, has a cabin now on the Chippewa Flowage in northeastern Wisconsin, or north central Wisconsin, I guess it would be, and so that is probably going to be our next big fishing target. And we fish in Vilas County, Wisconsin, also.
When you say Eagle Lake is the toughest, do you mean it just not a lot of fish, or?
No, that's where we fish the hardest. When we go to Canada, we fish for 7 or 8 hours a day. I mean, we're just out there pounding the water. The rest of the time, we can fish pretty hard. We've actually fished, I've actually had lures hung up on ice floes before, because the water was starting to freeze up in the wintertime before we got off the lake. So we've done some pretty hard fishing, but that's Eagle Lake. When we go up there, we spend a week and we really work at it. Now, I have to say, though, that I've moved to New Mexico now, and New Mexico has 2 excellent muskie lakes, and most people wouldn't put muskie lakes that far south or west, I don't think.
Are you going to send Virgil there at some point?
Virgil has been there in the next book. Virgil caught every muskie in one of the lakes.
That's probably going to piss off some game wardens somewhere. Barbara Kay asks, as Lucas has evolved over time, have you ever regretted something from an earlier book you had him do or say? Are there parts of his personality that don't gel?
The biggest regret I guess I've had is that I married him off. And I married him off to a really nice woman. The problem is that most people, men and women alike, want to have romance in their novels. They want to have some kind of romantic attachment develop between the main characters. If you have a guy marries a really nice woman and then he starts fooling around on her, that makes him a bad guy. And the same thing works the opposite way, of course. If you have a lead female character who fools around on her husband, that makes her a bad person. And you can't have your main character be bad in quite that way. They can be bad in some ways, but they can't really be treacherous in the sense of betraying a loved one. That makes them really not liked. So when I had Lucas marry Weather, that sort of took him out of circulation and made it difficult for him to to have a romantic relationship, and it sort of killed off the romances in some of the novels. So that was a problem. It was enough of a problem that I thought of killing off Weather. But I just, because I like her character so much, I just haven't been able to do that either. James Lee Burke, who's one of my favorite authors, his main character's been married a couple of times to women, both of whom either died or were killed, I think. I think that he may have run into the same problem I did, which was, having a wife around creates some problems that you don't, that don't make it easier to write books.
Relating to Weather, Brenda Gay Doherty asks, how did you come up with the name Weather?
Her name, Weather's name, was given to her by father, who was a big sailor on the Great Lakes. And when you're sailing, if you're sailing generally into the wind, it's called sailing into the weather. When you're tacking back and forth, kind of more or less going upwind, it's called sailing into the weather. So he liked that expression, so he called his daughter Weather.
That actually, I don't remember that from the books for some reason.
I think I just made that up.
No. Oh. Okay, didn't know that.
I think it's explained in one of the books, and maybe it might be Winter Prey.
Where she's introduced. Yeah. Okay. You ever encountered anyone named Weather, in real life? Yeah.
Never encountered anybody named Weather.
I know there's no caps locks in the world, so I checked. There aren't any. So.
There is apparently was a Virgil Flowers.
I'd believe that. And when we had the office at Galtier Plaza, the guy working the security at night was a Lieutenant Davenport.
Really?
Yeah. Black guy. Not Eric LaSalle, but
okay.
Yeah. Rita Basque asks, technology has changed so much over the years. Have you found it a challenge to incorporate new technology for Lucas in his crime-solving abilities since the launch of the Prey series?
I haven't found it a problem to incorporate new technology. My problem is that I have a lot of books now that are 25 years old. The situation there is I have Kid talking about, using the latest hot-rodded 8086 chip, which nobody's heard about for 25 years now. And so people are still reading those books, and they think, am I some kind of idiot? Do I still think people are using those old IBM machines? And the answer is no, it's just that the books are old. And the technology has moved so fast. I mean, it seems crazy to think about this, but basically 10 years ago, most people didn't have cell phones. I mean, it's just a little bit goofy. I can remember when my agent was walking around with a cell phone the size of a lunchbox.
Yeah.
So the technology has just moved very quickly. I've kept up with it, and Davenport's kept up with it, but putting it in there sometimes it just feels kind of hopeless to me, because I know that 2 years from now it's going to be out of date. Yeah. I mean, just to go on for a bit about this, since I've started writing this book, my first book was written using literally a tape recorder for mass storage.
Yeah.
And you remember that?
I remember that. That was the Coco.
Right. And then after using a tape recorder for mass storage, we went then to those big discs. The
big floppy disks, the 5 1/4s.
The 5 1/4s. Then we went down to the 3 1/2, which were my favorites.
Yeah.
And then we went down to the flash drives. And this has all been in a period of 20 years or so. We've had 5 different storage methods. We even had optical discs for a while.
Oh yeah, you still can.
Yeah, and I mean we've had all those things, and it just changes so fast. I worry that that some kid will pick up one of my books and read it and he won't understand what I'm talking about when I talk about a floppy drive in one of those early books because the technology's changed so much.
There is one way that the books have changed a little bit, and that a lot of the crime solving has gotten so instantaneous compared to like 30 years ago or 20 years ago that it's harder to make it plausible that they don't know who the bad guys are.
That's why the bad guys have to be almost invisible. In this book, for example, you keep coming up with ways trying not to find out where the bad guy's DNA is in the current book that's out right now. And the reason why is because, theoretically, you've got a small town. Small towns are involved with this. Theoretically, they could line up everybody and say, roll up your sleeve, we're going to take DNA.
And they've done that before. That happened in Leicester back in the 1990s in Britain. They literally took it for everyone. Went for the BTK killer. They tried to get everyone in Wichita, but of course here we have the ACLU and all that, and they say, no, that's violation of civil rights if you do that. But they do mass things like that, and they've been doing that for a while.
Well, the thing is you could ask everybody to do it voluntarily and then look for the people who decide they don't want to.
And that's how they caught the guy in Leicester, actually, is they found someone who he'd paid a friend to go in and take it for him. And the friend kind of said, my friend's a bit shady here, and
they caught him.
They caught him.
Well, so what I do is I wind up, when I'm writing this book, I wind up dancing around the whole DNA question, because DNA is so devastating. And in fact, innocent people now get convicted of crimes because of DNA. It's no question that it's their DNA. The question is, how did it get there? And a lot of the times, it's kind of like the prosecutor stands up and waves a DNA thing at them, and everybody just convicts. But there are lots of ways for things to get contaminated by DNA, which wouldn't really be a bad idea for a new novel.
It's already happened in the Prey books a couple of times, though.
Wrong DNA?
Wrong DNA.
Okay.
It's happened twice. Once he planted the DNA, he had it in the freezer. He was storing the red blood cells and stuff, the blood of the guy, broken Prey. And another time it was valid DNA, but it was the guy's uncle or his cousin.
Well, that's a little bit different because that was used to catch the guy.
Yeah.
And
but first they thought it was the wrong guy. They thought it was
right.
Yeah.
But I use that as a trick to catch the guy rather than having it just be, a bad conviction. Because there have been cases now of bad convictions, where the DNA was the major evidence. But one thing about evidence that it has to be handled properly. It can't.
And there you get into the whole Amanda Knox thing in Italy and that whole can of worms.
Right. And the Amanda Knox thing right now, they say, well, there was evidence now. Well, the whole way the Italians, I'm sorry, but the whole way that they handled the evidence in that case happens in the United States too, but the whole way the evidence was handled in that case makes it almost impossible to figure out what happened.
Yeah.